All right, coming back out of that, my test case ran on Gradescope. It was pretty quick. Um, but notice now it says test failed, false is not true. The method get brand name was not found. So the good indication here is I'm now got my constructor working. I put my colon inside of there, and so now my constructor seemed to be working. It's not actually testing any of these variables. You could do nothing inside of here, and it would pass it at that point. Just it's testing, can I call something with brand name, injection rate, CO2 rate, and container quality? So four values that are going into it, kind of like this. So again, I was optimistic my code was right, and I was wrong, and I got an error, but that's a useful error because you can see what it looks like. But now I need to continue and code some more to keep it going. So I need to create another method for this class. It's a function like anything else, but it's named, and I can see over here, is get brand name. I can actually copy. That's exactly what it's looking for right here, is get brand name. So I'm going to go ahead and toss that out there. So if I said get brand name on its own, then don't forget my colon this time, and I can say return, well, self dot brand name, right? That's what I just defined up there. And I can go try and run my code. Oh, let's see. Replace the call to get brand name. Oh, I haven't tested that yet, right? I do have an object now at the bottom because I created it, but it's also not printing out what I'm looking for yet. So I want to test it. So I want to not just print here, but I can say replace the call to get brand name. Well, I can say brand name, comma UUT dot get brand name. I'm going to call that thing I just wrote, right? So I can't. I mean, I can upload it, but I also want to test it locally. I want to learn how to make sure it's working locally and not rely on having to wait 3 or 4 minutes every time I upload it. So get a good idea. Oh, okay. Get brand name takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. Now you maybe saw this error before, but notice this isn't really super obvious what the heck this means. And so if you haven't figured out what it means before, now that we're in objects, hopefully it does. So I say get brand name without adding self, which is required for any method of a class. Because I need to know which object I'm working with, and it gets passed in, for whatever reason in Python, gets passed in as an argument named self. So then notice that's where my self comes in here. It's the same argument that got passed in here. It's the same object that gets passed around. It's just that in Python, it's very explicit as a parameter. But notice down here, it doesn't show up as a parameter. It actually gets shown up as UUT is what gets passed in. So when I say UUT.get brand name, I'm expecting it to print code 0, as opposed to a second one that would print something else. So again, code 0. So it's brand name code 0. So that's working. I'm happy with that. Let me show you what I meant by the other one real quick. Let me say I have UUT and UUT2, and this one is it's River Dew right there. So I create UUT2. I don't expect this to print out River Dew. It prints out code 0 because UUT2 is not what I typed right here. If I type UUT2 here instead, unit under test 2, then it would print out River Dew. So I just want you to really see where this data is coming from. When I call this constructor, these values get stored inside of this object UUT. And then when I say, hey, from that, get, that's what it returns it. All right. So if you are really cautious, if you want to know what's going on, and there's not any reason not to be, I can resubmit this if I want to. I can check it out. So I'm going to toss my cover sheet out there. I'm going to go get my code and my ledger and toss that out there. I'm going to let this run in the background. So if something's wrong, it'll tell me. But probably what it's going to tell me is I need to go work on the next method in line. Theoretically, it's going to be get injection rate. But we'll have to wait and see. If you don't want to have to sit there and upload 100 times and wait for it, that's fine. I can just keep working from here. So the get brand name was the first one. Let's see if get injection rate is the next one. Is it finished? Nope, it's not finished. I'll just keep coding. Oh, there it goes. Yep, get injection rate. That's the next one. And since I did this, I can copy it. So I'm going to back to my code. So this is going to be easy. I'm going to paste this right here, but I'm going to copy this whole thing. And I'm going to do it three more times. So the reason why I did 3 more times is I'm getting confident, maybe cocky. I'm going to throw injection rate here, and I'm going to change this one to be get CO2 rate, and I'm going to change this one to be get container quantity. Notice here, lowercase c here, uppercase C here. Why? That's what's called camel case. Every time you start a new word, you put a capital letter. Variables and methods start with a lowercase letter. Class names start with an uppercase letter. That's the convention in object-oriented um, design. Not necessarily required. The code doesn't care per se, but that's the convention. Makes it easier for you to read. Now, if I do this, everything's going to return brand name, so I need to make sure I change the variable. Notice in this case, both these variables are named the same thing. There's nothing wrong with it because I can use self in front of it to identify which one's which. But sometimes you'll see the parameters named something different to make it less confusing, perhaps. I find it to be fine like this, especially when it's a simple one up top, because I keep the consistent name throughout. But some languages and some coders prefer to give the attributes a different name than what the parameters might be. All right, so again, I need to test this. So I need to check out my code. I'm going to say injection rate. And that's going to be very easy. Here, ut.get injection rate. And then I'm going to continue to be cocky. And I'm just going to swap out the CO2 rate and say ut.get CO2 rate. And then I'm going to say container quantity. And that's going to be uut.get container quantity. And I'm going to run this here, see if it's working for me. All right, so code 0, 0.25, 0.11, 1000. So far, so good, it seems. So I got cocky, I did all of these. Let's see if it pans out. I'm going to go ahead and test it here again. So take my code, drop over to my cover sheet, and upload those. All right. So that is most of it. I do need a set container quantity and a string. I got to do everything in this class to have it all work. But if you have a nice stopping point like I did there, I went ahead and uploaded it, and then we'll see. Oh, there you go. All of those seem to be working now at one set container quantity. So my tests actually go through and make sure you got everything set up before it gets crazy on the testing. But let's go ahead and do that now. So def, set container quantity. We need self for sure. We know about that. I don't know exactly what we're going to do yet, but let's look at it. Oh, it's set container quantity 2 is what it looks like. There's a parameter that's going in that it's named 2 right there. You can name it whatever you want to, but 2 works for me. So what am I doing? Well, I'm saying self dot container quantity. It's a setter, right? So I'm going to assign that variable to 2. That's all I'm asking it to do right here. Now, this could be doing something else, right? The container quantity, I could store it as a percentage of everything that's left. I could say I want to store it, I want 2 variables. I want 1 was the original quantity and 2 is how much has been used or what's remaining or whatever. The idea of encapsulation is maybe I'm just setting a variable inside of it, but maybe I'm doing something else. In this case, I don't have any requirements to do anything else, so I'm just going to leave it right there. So how do I test this? Well, I'm going to take print container quantity and paste it. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is say uut.set container quantity. Well, I'm going to take a drink, right? So I'm going to get myself a 12-ounce beverage. And that's going to be 25% of it is going to be taken out of it as that. So it's 4 ounces that's going to be used. So I'm going to set it to 996. That's the story I'm telling myself. I can set anything I want to. But the story that I'm telling myself is I'm going to go pour a 12-ounce beverage, and a quarter of that is the syrup that I'm using to make my drink. And so it's going to end up at 996. And so let's see if this works. All right. So, oh, wait. So it started off at 1,000. And then it returned 1,000 again. It printed 1,000 2 times, even though I changed the container quantity. So, what did I do wrong? Well, let's check. Make sure, yep, that looks like I typed it all right. If I didn't, it probably would have ended up as something else. Um, and so self.container quantity, well, let's check, make sure that that's typed right. Ah, look at that. When I undo that, so I spelled it wrong. So if I don't have this spelling be exactly perfect, in this case, copying and pasting, then, oh, see, there, containers, AINER, where before I had contain quantity. So that was a mistake, a simple mistake, but this is a wrinkle in dealing with Python that if I spell something wrong, Python doesn't know if I wanted a second variable with that different spelling or if I was trying to use the other variable and messed up. So in other languages where you have to define your attributes up front, then you have to get them right. You have to spell them right. In Python, if you spell them wrong, then it'll just simply add a new variable. And then you won't know it unless you test it. So it's really important to test your code. And my code didn't work. It didn't change that container quantity. So let's try it again. Ah, now it did. 1,996. So I, I have the string to work on, but I'm going to go work on that. So might as well, while I'm going to have to do that, might as well resubmit this one more time and give it my cover sheet, and we'll give it my code and the ledger and let that run in the background while I go and consider the string printing functionality. So the last one here that I need to consider is the string def underscore underscore str underscore parenthesis parenthesis with a self inside. So let me just show you real quick. I can put anything I want to right here. Return hello. And if I run this code, notice the last thing that used to be printed out as main beverage container object at is now printed out as hello. So anytime you do a print, it goes off on an object and calls this underscore underscore str, which converts your object into some text. If you haven't done that, the default is I'm going to tell you where this is being called from, what the name of the class is. It's an object, and then this is the memory address where that object is stored in the current RAM. If you want to have print something interesting, you can replace it with whatever you want to. And we'll do that after this. Oh, look, it actually has everything printed out. Apparently, I forgot to test the string part, so I guess you can be done without this. But you will need it in other ones, and I might actually update the test in the meantime. Now that I realize I forgot that, so let's assume that you have to do that in the other ones because I'm probably going to add that test here in the next couple minutes. But we'll talk about how to add that string functionality to convert an object to a string next.